I've seen stains crawl. I wish that was an exaggeration, a morbid, late-shift hallucination brought on by 4 too many shots of vending machine espresso. But it's not, and if you stay with me, you'll understand why I'll never look at a mop the same way again. Tonight, the stain was the size of a dinner plate, pressed right where the sickly yellow tile met the skirting board of sublevel A9. It pulsed, subtle as a breath, shimmering around the edges like the silvery slick left by a snail, only thicker, clottier. I almost missed it. That's the trick of these hallways. The flicker of the lights makes everything look half alive anyway, reflected in 100 off-white rectangles as far as you can see. I knelt down, holding my breath. I don't want to give it the satisfaction. I don't want them, the people watching, or the things hiding in the walls, to know what's really going on in my gut. The bleach stung my nose. The mop's bristles quivered under my grip, and the air had that tacky, pre-thunderstorm heaviness. Static, like everything was waiting. You ever try to clean something that fights back? Not in the way of crusted ketchup or ancient coffee, no. I mean something that knows you're there, something squirming with intent. I pressed the mop against it and felt a resistance, like pushing against a clogged drain. The mop left a wet shadow, but the stain was definitely moving, retreating inwards, toward a hairline crack in the tile. And that's when the sound began. It started as a low whine, almost electrical, like when you stand too close to the old generator near level 3's vending alcove. But it grew, escalating, until the whole corridor seemed to ring with it, a metallic scream echoing from somewhere far, far behind the walls. Not a person's scream. Not quite. Too thin, wrong pitch, broken and warped like a recording that's been played too many times backward. I dropped the mop, or maybe it jerked out of my hand, sometimes I can't tell, not with these stains. The sound seemed to ripple under my skin, rooting me to the spot. You know that feeling you get watching a horror movie, when you know the jump scare is coming but you can't look away. It was like that, except I was the one about to get jumped, and if I blinked, I was pretty sure the corridor would look different when I opened my eyes. For those of you who keep commenting, why don't you quit? Or isn't a job just a job? I wish it were that simple. I wish I could clock out. But this gig isn't a side hustle. It's a sentence. You don't leave the backrooms until the backrooms say so. And the rules, the only thing between keeping your skin and joining the stains, aren't just a suggestion. They're a survival manual, handwritten in someone else's desperation and left for idiots like me to follow. I can't leave. Not unless every single rule is ticked, every shift survived, and every sound obeyed. You want to know the rules? Maybe I shouldn't tell you. Maybe you're safer not knowing. Maybe if you can't see the mold, it won't see you. But it's too late for that now, isn't it? You're listening. You're here with me on this endless night shift. Rule 1. Don't ignore the stains, not if they move. Maybe you're expecting a story loaded with monsters right from the first punch, but the truth is, the terror here creeps up on you slow as mildew and twice as stubborn. When I first started, I figured this was just another bottom-rung gig, the kind nobody applies for unless they've already burned every other bridge. Some evenings, I almost convinced myself it was true. Does this sound familiar? You show up dead-eyed, clock in, see your reflection in some pitted strip of window glass, and pretend for a moment you look just like everyone else. The backroom's what I called the building before everything went weird. Felt, at first, like every other graveyard shift gig in a surreally empty corporate complex. White acoustic tiles, infinite yellow-lit corridors, the choke of industrial. Citrus cleaner, abandoned cubicles with little stress balls that always wound up under the desks. One of those places where the posters don't even try to be subtle. Cleanliness is godliness, or else. The or else part, I used to joke, was just the boss breathing down your neck. I wish. First week or two, I even managed to laugh with Marco from security. He's the guy with the gum habit and the ghost stories, always parked in the flickering camera room with both feet up. Careful with level 2 tonight, he'd say. HR went missing again. The worst we thought we'd see was a ghost in the vending machine glass. Maybe some poor office drone who got so bored they turned to dust. Even the employee handbook, cracked and stained, tried to spin things as normal. Rule 6. Spotless floors make for spotless records. If only the floors or the records ever actually got that way. The break room was always locked, despite the flyers about mandatory morale pizza days. And the coffee machine brewed only cold sludge. Every clock, in every room, told a different time. changing if you looked away for too long. I thought it was just bad wiring. You want to know where the dread starts? It crawls in during the small hours, when you convince yourself that the flickering lights are just a bad fixture until you realize you've never, not once, seen anyone replace a bulb. That they don't burn out. They hum, like they're alive themselves. Stains bloom where you swore you just cleaned, shapes forming words you can't quite make out. Mops left leaning against the wall vanish, then reappear right where you started, a little wetter, a little heavier than before. The weirdest things, at first, were almost mundane. The way the vents kept whispering sometimes a song you half remember from childhood, sometimes your own name. And yes, people, I know you think you've heard your name in there, too. Check my last post, Jessica, I saw your comment. Little glitches. The air always smells like bleach, but never clean. Desk drawers would open by themselves and close softly just as you passed. Even Marco couldn't explain the time HR disappeared for an entire week, and nobody noticed until their desk plants started dying. People say janitors see everything, but mostly we're invisible. That's how it was supposed to be. I'd sweep stale crumbs and try to avoid the employee of the month. Well, those faces never changed, and now most of them are literally blank. Not blurred. You know those faces the old printers spit out when the toner's running dry like that. I tried to keep my head down, let the night shift blur together with podcasts and cheap headphones, pretending that what lurked outside my little bubble of bleach and burnt coffee wasn't staring holes through me. It almost worked. But the building, whatever it is, doesn't like being ignored. It wants you to pay attention to stains, to rules, to whispering shadows under fluorescent lights. My first real warning? When the mop started writing by itself. Rule 1 is tattooed in my brain. Don't ignore the stains, not if they move. I learned that one early, and if you think it wouldn't be that hard, you've never watched janitorial foam bubble and pop against a surface like it's burning alive. Here's a pro tip for all you keyboard experts in the comments. If what you're cleaning ever seems to twitch, or if the mop fights back, just chalk it up to experience and tell your supervisor you need a raise immediately. But in the backrooms, the only one listening is the building itself. I already told you about the first time how the stain pulsed, how I sat frozen while that scream rattled my teeth from the inside out. What I didn't say was this. After I failed to clean it, I checked the logger's closet cameras the next day. The new rookie, a kid whose name I can't remember, which is how this place works, isn't it, went to mop up after me. By lunchtime, he was gone. His badge turned up in the drain. To this day, a fresh, inky trail always leads back to that spot, no matter how much disinfectant I pour down. I think the stain liked having someone listen. Or maybe it just wanted to see who noticed. That's the first rule for a reason. Moving stains aren't just gross. They're bait. I didn't make this up. There's a note taped inside my locker and not in my handwriting listing every rule. The ink smudges more every week, as if the paper doesn't want me to read it, but it's always there when I open the door. Rule 2 is harder. Never respond to voices after 2:17 a.m. People laugh at that one in the comments. I get it. It sounds specific, like some internet chain letter. Pass this on or the backrooms will eat your soul. But this isn't a story about souls. This is about not disappearing. It happened during my second month. I was dragging my cart past Corridor C again, with the lights flickering just a beat too fast. I heard footsteps, then a cough. Marco, or so I thought. Janitor, you missed a spot, the voice called, sing-song, with just enough sarcasm to be convincing. I didn't even look up, because Marco always sounded bored, and honestly, he loved ragging on me for taking my time. Here's the thing. I've got the kind of ears that can tell the difference between a real person and a cheap Bluetooth speaker halfway down the hall. But that night, the voice was Marco's, but it wasn't in the hallway. It came from everywhere. Worse, it echoed with a delay, like it was crawling out of the air vents, dragged through static and wires. Hey, you there? It tried again, a little too eager, like a telemarketer with a quota. I shrugged, kept pushing my cart, but my heart pounded so hard that for a second I thought it would draw whatever was listening. As I passed under the Do Not Disturb placard, good advice. By the way, never trust the courtesy signage here. The letters rippled. I swear, you could see them ripple, as if something behind. The plastic cover was breathing with each syllable what the voice repeated. Do not disturb. Disturb. Warbling. Distorted. Called Marco on the walkie. Static. Nothing. I texted him. Was that you just now minutes past? His reply, nope. Haven't left the office. If you see me, run. Funny joke, right? Except he never jokes about the voices after 2:17. They always hit just when I think I'm alone, and there's a special kind of terror that rides the line between hearing your own name and knowing you shouldn't answer. I once heard my late grandmother's voice calling to me from the electrical closet. She'd been dead 10 years. That was a bad shift. You're probably sitting somewhere, thinking you'd do better. Ignore the voices, duh. Get a better job, double duh. But you don't know what happens if you answer. I do. Jessica, if you're listening, you remember that time you sent a tip about using earplugs? Smart. Not enough. One guy did break rule 2. Alan, the night floor manager. He answered a voice, a desperate, sobbing version of his wife, who's definitely not on payroll. He walked straight into the service stairwell. We found his apron, twisted into a perfect loop around the doorknob. They say he's still working, somewhere below, pushing a cart alone, answering and answering forever. If you ever find yourself here, don't talk back. And if you must answer, lie. Lie about your name, your job, lie about what you see. They're listening for your secrets. Rule 3, though that's the one that catches most newbies. The break room is a lie. Avoid it at all costs. You'd think we'd all know by now, given the bone-dry coffee pots and locked fridge, but there's a longing, late at night, for familiarity. For mugs with chipped cats and chairs that don't have wheels missing. The break room should be a refuge. That's how they get you. Let me tell you about the first time I tried to take a breather after a double shift from level 1 all the way to the document annex. My back was killing me, so I key carded my way into the break room, quotes intentional. First thing that hit me, the smell. Not mold, not burnt coffee, but emptiness. Echoes. I could hear my own steps multiply off the linoleum and bounce back, out of pace. You know those dreams where you turn a corner and the hallway just keeps getting longer as you walk? That was this room. There was a vending machine blinking, out of order, in 10 different colors. The microwave door hung open, as if someone just left in a hurry. In the corner, something shifted, a shadow that didn't belong to me or to any object I could see. I froze, too tired, maybe, to care. Then a voice. Lunch is ready. It crooned, sickly sweet, from a shadow behind the fridge. I spun, heart in my throat. The shadow uncurled a fraction, and for just a second, I saw no. I recognized the reflection of my own name tag, floating above the darkness. I'm not crazy. I never made it inside all the way, never saw what happened next. Maybe that's why I'm still here. Helen from HR, a real person, or as real as anyone gets in this place, went in during her lunch break last November. Her purse turned up on the kitchenette counter, straps chewed straight through like sugar by an army of invisible rodents. There's still a dark stain on the fridge, shaped eerily like a person sitting slumped at the table. The next day, the posters changed. Take your breaks elsewhere, crooked, as if someone stuck them up in haste, the glue still wet. Our break room has no door now. Only a blank patch of wall where it used to be, and a faint vibration in the floor if you stand too long. You want a summary? Here's my running list straight from my locker, in trembling scrawl. Rule 1. Don't ignore the stains, not if they move. Rule 2. Never respond to voices after 2:17 a.m. Rule 3. The break room is a lie. Avoid at all costs. That I get it if it sounds paranoid. The folks who wash out by week 2 always call us nuts. But weird as these rules are, they're what keep you breathing. There are 3 more. That's the part no one tells you. 6 rules total, but the last 3 are never written down in the same handwriting. Sometimes they change, sometimes they rewrite themselves. And the forbidden rules? Those are worse. The ones you don't want to read, let alone follow. You ever dream about cleaning something so deeply it feels like you're scrubbing your own lungs raw? Yeah, you think these are bad? Wait till you hear about the midnight spill. Midnight had a particular flavor in the backrooms, sharp and coppery, like biting your tongue when you yawn. Used to be that time meant nothing down here. Some clocks ran backward. Some stopped at 2:16, some just blinked nonsense. But every now and then, something happened at the exact hour between night and morning, and you learned why people left this job in the middle of their shift, if you believe they left at all. I remember the night of the midnight spill like a fever dream. Some of you regulars know the drill. You've heard these stories before: the overflowing toilets, the burst vending machine syrup lines, the endless trail of mystery gunk behind the HVAC units. That night wasn't supposed to be any different. Just another anonymous incident flagged by the internal system, a panic chirp in my earpiece. Janitorial, please respond. Main corridor, level B4. Repeat. Main corridor, immediate attention. Marco's voice, only just awake, static-laced and bored. I grinned, even as I grabbed my kit. What is it this time, Marco? Another mysterious sandwich leak? Tell the sandwich to submit a formal complaint. He snorted. Don't get cute. This is a big one. Oh, and bring the old mop. Trust me. And maybe say a prayer. I shuffled off, flashlight bouncing off the sick yellow walls. The place was quiet, too quiet in that weird, wrong way that meant things were listening. With each step I tried to convince myself it'd be nothing, just an overblown soda geyser or a busted pipe. But about halfway down the corridor, my nose started burning. It was a sharp, chemical tang unlike any of the standard backrooms odors. Blood, maybe, or metal, or a burnt lemon. And then I rounded the corner and stopped. Impossible. There was a spill snaking down the floor, weaving between the useless caution, wet floor signs that someone must have set out hours ago. The liquid was inky black, shifting in color as the emergency bulbs flickered here, the oil-slick sheen of a rainbow. There, the dense, syrupy red of coagulating wine. It wasn't pooling like a normal liquid. It was crawling, clinging stubbornly to the grout, splitting and merging as if searching for every available exit. I radioed in, voice nearly steady. Marco, send me another caution sign and maybe a lifeguard. He didn't laugh. Don't touch it until you see where it's coming from, he said, and the line clicked dead. Helpful. From the far end, I heard wet shuffles and a groan, as if the spill was heaving up little bubble lumps of sound. I prepared to mop it up, trying to ignore the way my shadow split and swam on the glistening floor. I barely touched the edge when my mop head fizzed and screamed. Not figuratively, either. The bristles twisted as if in agony, the metal hissed, and a sour, high-pitched wail escaped the fibers. The mop dissolved in sections, steaming. I froze, my heart splintering across my ribs. How many messages like this have I ignored before? How many chances had the backrooms given me supervisor? This is janitorial. The mess is, not responding to standard cleaning procedures. Requesting backup. A voice, garbled, filtered through too many radios. Protocol. Continue. Complete the rules. My ears rang. Was that the supervisor, or was it the vent voices again, mimicking what I wanted to hear? The lights flickered, and I saw movement. The spill was climbing the wall, seeping upward in complicated, recursive loops. It was spelling something. It almost looked like a word help before the letters bled into each other and dripped down, sliding back toward my shoes. Panic tickled the back of my brain. I remembered Alan, the night manager. If the substance starts to spell, it's too late, he'd muttered, eyes hollow, months before he vanished. Still, I fished a rag from my pocket, wrapped my hand, and tried to squeegee it toward the nearest drain. The rag burned my palm, and I hissed, tossing it by reflex. From deeper in the corridor, behind a locked supply closet, "Do not enter door," I heard muttering. Two voices, overlapping, one mine, one someone else's, familiar in the worst way. It's Rule 4 next. Rule 4. Rule 4. I backed away, squeezing the radio. Marco, you seeing this on camera? All I got was a burst of static, then a chorus of whispers, twisted and metallic. Clean up. Clean up. Clean up the mess. Clean up the mess. Clean up the rules. At this point, I wanted to run, or laugh, or both. You ever watch a mop head dissolve itself while screaming all because of a puddle that's learned how to spell? Backroom's comedic timing. If it wasn't terrifying, it'd be funny. I remembered something I'd heard from a previous janitor years ago in our haunted forum threads. If the spill moves against gravity, you're out of your depth. I reached for the second mop, the old one, the one with initials carved in the handle, not mine, not anyone I ever worked with, and hesitated. Did I really want to touch it? Or had it been left for situations like this? Someone, or something, pounded against the supply closet door. Muffled voices rose and fell from inside. Let me out. I have to finish. I have to finish. Something heavy fell against the door from the other side, rattling the handle, scraping at the lock. The spill split, sending tendrils in two directions, one toward me, one toward the supply closet. I staggered back, dropping the radio. As I scrambled to pick it up, I glimpsed a flash of White just past the closet threshold, a laminate badge, half melted, bobbing in the dark ooze. Not a body, just a name and a blurry photo, the plastic warping into 1,000 unreadable grooves. So, in case you ever wondered why you never see two janitors cleaning the same spill at once, now you know. I thought for a second about what would happen if I just left. Let the spill do whatever unspeakable thing it was planning. Let someone else break the rules. But the backrooms aren't a place you can walk away from. You don't just quit after midnight. You either get through the shift or you get written off. The brass always said, nobody knows what happens if you break all 6 rules. Well, almost nobody. The muttering from the closet stopped as suddenly as it started. The spill eased back along the floor, snaking into some unseen crack. The corridor was silent again except for the sound of my own breathing, ragged and stupid loud. That's when I learned Rule 4 probably the hard way. I never wanted to know why there were so many supply closets, let alone why they all looked the same, but never seemed to sit in the same spot. The night after the midnight spill, I finally learned Rule 4. Sometimes learning a rule means almost breaking it close enough to feel the teeth snap just an inch from your ankle. Rule 4. Always lock the supply closet from the inside, even when you're already out. Paranoia? Sure. At first, I thought it was more of that contagion. Every janitor, with enough caffeine and not enough daylight, gets a little jumpy about storage space. But this wasn't about storage. After the spill, I ran for the nearest closet, wheezing and sweating. I didn't even realize what I was doing until I slammed the door behind me, hands shaking against the cold, tiny lock. My key ring caught the light 20 keys, half of them nubs, some with initials scratched into dull brass. Yours never fits on the first try. Inside, the air was stale, thick with that artificial lemon-scented rot. Shelves groaned under the weight of supplies nobody ordered, buckets warped from years of too-hot bleach, a battered sign that read, "Rest here, but don't linger," which was new, I swear. I paused to catch my breath, sliding the lock. I didn't think. I just locked it. Seconds later, the knob jiggled. Once, twice, too slow to be just the pipes settling. With my ear to the metal, I could hear something breathing on the other side, slow and too even. For a minute, I thought it was just me, lost in my own echoes, but the breath continued even after I forced myself to hold mine. Then came a voice, almost a purr. "Unlock. It's late. They need you back out there." It wasn't a voice I recognized. Not Marco's tired rasp, not Helen's brittle cheer. It sounded like myself, if I listened through fog. I pressed against the far wall, muscles taut, every instinct screaming not to make a sound. The supply closets are supposedly safe. At least that's what the old hands claim in the maintenance forums. Shout out to the other maintenance teams stalking these comments. Let me know if your cart's ever run by itself. But if they're so safe, how come, whenever I looked under the door, one shadow would always be facing the wrong way? The voice got impatient. "You can't hide forever. Let me in. You forgot the mop." My own words, slurred, wrong. The handle rattled again, then stopped. Silence, except for a slow, rhythmic squeak. That's when I heard it, the sound of wheels on tile. At first faint, then closer, accelerating a rolling, dragging clatter. It circled the closet 3 times, pausing, as if sniffing me out. Maybe you think a cleaning cart is funny plastic bucket, loan bottle, low tech. But in the backrooms, a cart left in the wrong place turns into something else altogether. So, Rule 5. If you hear the cleaner's cart approach and you're alone, hide and do not breathe. It's not just about being careful. Oh, don't get caught slacking off. If the cart stops outside your door, you hide sometimes even from yourself. That night, the shape that passed the glass slit in the closet door wasn't the battered red cart I used on level B. It had too many wheels, and for a heartbeat it glided instead of rattled. Its shadow was long, stretched, like there were arms reaching out both sides, but when I blinked, it reverted, just your average cart, mop dangling off the side, wringer clanking against the bucket. It stopped, wheels squealing. Then, quietly, a small, almost polite knock. I pressed myself deeper into the shelves. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I remembered something Marco had once muttered after a double. If you ever see your own hands on the cart, don't look up. Just hide and count to 20. So I counted. 1, 2, 3, and the knocking ceased. For a moment, nothing. Then, a rustle from behind the chemical boxes. Something slid across the floor. The badge, again, from last night's spill. Except this time the name was mine, the letters stretching, peeling, trying to form a second face in the plastic. I blinked and squeezed the key hard enough to leave marks on my palm. The overhead light flickered, and suddenly the supply closet felt colder, smaller, edges blurring. Panicked, I tried the lock, twisted, yanked. I shouldn't have looked down, but I did. There was something moving in the shadow under the door. A hand, maybe, or just my own mind. Then, just as sudden as it began, the cart rolled away, wheels shrieking, echoing, the sound fading through tile and drywall and whatever's behind these endless corridors. My badge slipped back under the door. I was alone, if you can call it that, in a room that suddenly didn't attach to the same hallway I'd entered from. I stepped outside and found myself on another floor, different stains, different clocks, the same sense of something watching. Last week, someone in the comments theorized we're really in a cleaning supply warehouse, just looping through endless stockrooms. If only. At least then you'd have an exit. Lock the closet from the inside. Hide from the cart, especially your own. That's how you make it to the next shift. But rule 6? That's the one I barely survived telling you. There are rules you whisper at the end of a shift, when the backrooms flex their claws and you wonder why you still exist at all. Rule 6 was never written in my locker, never recited in that trembling scrawl, but it sang from every surface, vibrating in the pipes and the lights, and the uneasy grind of the cart wheels in the gloom. Rule 6. If you see yourself, run. You think you know what that means, maybe a cracked mirror, or your face on some malfunctioning CCTV, or the way exhaustion makes you double take at your own shadow. That's what I thought. Wishful thinking. Reality's much, much hungrier than that. It happened after I stumbled out of the shifting supply closet, heart pounding and hands stained. I was still clutching my badge, its laminate edge warped and unfinished, like the machine never quite completed my imprint. The hallway ahead was empty, the hum of the lights fever bright. But as I moved, I felt something off, the sense of walking behind yourself in a nightmare. Too slow and too loud. My shoes squeaked, but every few steps there'd be another echo, out of time. I didn't look into reflective surfaces after midnight, if I could help it. You learn fast glass panels, polished doors, even big wet stains can catch you off guard. But there are corners you can't avoid, patches of dull steel on the utility carts, warped plexiglass in the fire doors. I caught a glimpse as I passed the broken break room, where the break room should be, except it was just peeling yellow wall and a half moon of black glass. My reflection stared back at me, expressionless, but the skin, it didn't fit right. Not just double bag under the eyes, tired, but wrong. Sagging, a little too blurry, features sliding out of true, as if someone had melted my memory and poured it back in the wrong mold. I stopped. That was mistake number 1. My reflection didn't. It kept moving, even as I felt my own body freeze. Just a fraction ahead, eyes locked on mine. You've been tired before, sure, but have you ever watched your own face wait for you? With a patience that no living thing could summon, I'm not ashamed to admit I tried to talk to it. I whispered, "Don't do this," like bargaining with my own future. It smiled, the way tired people smile, unmoved, no warmth, teeth gleaming just a bit too sharp. Then it mouthed something, "Run." That's when my reflection's body, pressed a bloody palm to the glass. I jerked back, stumbling, and as I did, my echo spoke out loud, voice drawn out and wrong. "That's not me. That's not me. It's still here." The hallway behind me flickered, filled with double shadows moving just out of rhythm. Each light buzzed, casting not one, but 2 silhouettes. I couldn't breathe. I remembered every horror story, every cautionary tale among the old-timers. Don't let your reflection get ahead of you. You'll never catch up. I ran with all the ugly grace of a sleepwalker, shoving past carts, dodging stains that shimmered in the corners, never looking back at anything that might reflect. I ducked into empty rooms, crouched by vending machines humming out-of-tune lullabies. Every time I caught a glimpse in shiny plastic or glass, the me on the other side was wrong and closer. Sometimes it was blurry. Sometimes it wore someone else's grin. I thought about hiding in another closet, but somehow, I knew that's what it wanted. I knew, just as you know when something's hunting, that I could only keep running, never let it overtake me, never let it close that split-second lead. If you see yourself too clearly here, it's over. Maybe that's what the backrooms want most. For you to forget which you is the right one. I know there's someone reading this thinking, this is all made up. Nobody's reflection chases them. Maybe. I hope so. If this seems like the punchline of an overworked mind, I promise, that's the safest answer. But ask yourself, have you ever felt like you were being watched, and underneath that, like you were the thing being waited for? If you see me in another comment, just don't reply. If you hear your own voice from the vents, even if it's asking for help, don't talk back. And if you ever see yourself in a place where you shouldn't be seen, don't stop. Don't stare. Run as if your job, your sanity, your memory depends on it. Because it does. Someday, the backrooms will get what they want, and I'll be the reflection on the wrong side of the glass. But not tonight. Not yet. I can hear the cart again. It sounds closer. There's a point in every shift where you lose track of which stains you've already scrubbed and which ones you keep passing over and over. I could swear I mopped this stretch of corridor already. Same flickering light, same greasy handprint, same impossible puddle snaking beneath the skirting board, but the seconds slip, and I'm never quite sure if I'm walking forward or just circling an endless loop. Sometimes, when I look up, I see myself rounding the next bend. Not in a mirror, not in shadow, just another me, head bowed under the sick yellow glare, pushing a cart that squeaks to the exact rhythm of my heart. Sometimes I hear myself whistling a tune I haven't thought of in years. Sometimes the footsteps behind me stop just before I do. Tonight, everything feels thinner than usual. The walls buzz, humming with a tension I can almost taste. I scrub and scrub, but the stain spreads when I blink, rewriting itself in a language I almost understand, like rules I half remember from a dream that smacks of bleach and regret. My hands ache. My badge is cracked, my radio just static. The rules bleed together, and I can't always tell if I'm following them, or if they're following me. I wish I could tell you I finished the job, that there was an end to the corridor, or a sunrise, or even just a locked door and a clock that showed the right time for once. But the work's never really finished in the backrooms. Every time I cross something off the list, another mess blooms behind me. A new spill, a new stain, a new whisper in the vents sounding almost, but not quite like my name. Now the lines between the rules grow muddier. I double-check every closet, locking and unlocking until my fingers go numb. But sometimes the closet opens onto the same hallway I just left. Sometimes the mop is in my hands. Sometimes my own shadow carries it ahead of me, disappearing around the next impossible corner. My reflection, I think, is getting bolder. I caught it smiling tonight, just as the lights went dead for a split second. Part of me wonders honestly if I've already become what I feared. If I was the doppelganger all along. Or maybe the backrooms just wear you down until everything is you, and you're everything left. Is it still paranoia if you're right some nights? I want to believe I'm sending this out, this warning. This confession to people who aren't already trapped inside the walls with me. Maybe you're one of the lucky ones on the outside. Maybe you're just now reading, hoping for rules that will save you. So here's where I ask, what would you do? If you figured out a way to clean a stain you can't see, would you tell me? Would you share a 7th rule, one that lets you finally clock out? If you have answers, leave them behind. Leave them in the comments. Someone, somewhere, is always reading. And if you're thinking none of this could ever happen to you, maybe that's why it's waiting. Look, I know what you're thinking. 6 rules, but it never feels like enough. No matter how many I follow, there's always something left, unspoken guidelines that slip through my fingers, secrets stuck to the undersides of the out-of-order signs, stains that spell out names I've never given. Some rules only show their teeth after midnight. Some you won't remember even after they've saved your life or marked your last day. There are more than 6 rules, aren't there? Maybe they're just waiting for you to break them, too. If you're reading this, maybe you're already working here. Maybe you've been here longer than you realize. Tell me, how do you clean a stain you can't see? Because one thing I know, and maybe the only thing that's ever proven true, don't ignore the stains. They're the only things that remember.